Is it because of his skin colour? Is it anything to do with that? I'm just asking.
Part 2, I'm going to do this in one hit, no edit, because I don't think I can edit on this. I'm going to now tell you. Let me just clear a few things up, and let me tell you why I now believe it had 100% to do with the race. Okay, hear me out. First of all, if you've not watched the whole of the other video, please don't comment, because most of the comments, it was answered in the rest of the video, but you haven't watched it all, because it tells me how many have watched it. Please watch it and then make an informed comment, whatever, judgment, whatever you want to say about me. Here's why I believe it was to do with race, because in the UK at that time, and it started in America with George Floyd and his murderer, Derek. Okay, so at that time, I think the date was the 20th of April 2021, he was found guilty, okay, of second-degree murder. That was his charge, right? And that was the 20th of April. On the 21st of April, the next day, this guy was sentenced, okay? And then on the 25th of June, Derek was then handed a 22.5-year sentence, whatever. But in between all that, right, what was happening here in the UK is there was protests around on the back of all of that. And again, I'm not disagreeing with anything that went on, okay, or I'm not here to judge any of that. I'm just stating it as it was. So it was like a kettle boiling in the communities, right? So you had the BLM protests, and they were calling for reform within things like stop and search, which were disproportionately against black people. Okay, so that was one of the things they were calling for. So what happened with that is they do you know what the government did? They fucking doubled down on the stop. They actually increased the powers for police for stop and search, which went against everything BLM was trying to push on. So that pissed people off. They then had another protest across the country to investigate institutionalised racism. Okay, this is all happening at that time. So they did a report. It was called the Cyril Report. That was the guy's name, and his report was based on ethnic disparities, and it came back and it stated that there was no evidence of systematic racism, and it was more down to social class. So that's pissed people off as well, right? And again, I'm just laying it out as it was, because there's people saying that I'm making a comparison between the George Floyd. I'm not comparing this with that. One has nothing to do with the other, really, but it does, because it was happening right there and then. Like the country, you guys have got to admit that at that time it was chaos, right? I'm not saying who was causing the chaos. I'm just saying it was. There was a lot going on, but I feel like that had an impact on how the system here handed down sentences, because of the fear in the government of making matters worse. That's exactly what I believe it was. Okay, and I'm not making it about race. I'm really not. I know you're saying I am because he's black. I couldn't care what colour he was. She's still gone, isn't she? But I can't ignore what was going on at that time. I can't. And I believe that the judge came into that court case with a predetermined sentence for him. I believe he knew that. I mean, he came to court with his bags packed, believing he was going. He was advised he was going to prison. Everyone told me he was going to prison, but he didn't, because I believe it was for what was going on. You know, there was fear. There was ministers were arguing that it was culture wars, and these are all the terms that were getting thrown around. So yeah, that pissed people off what was going on at that time. Especially like Boris Johnson, he came and he doubled down on stop and search. Like shit just hit the fan at that time. And again, this is all in between. I'm right in the middle of this happening, right? I'm right in the middle of it. In fact, on the 20th, the day Derek was found guilty, there was protests again in the UK on that day. Okay, but he was also given bail. Like they let him have bail, $1 million bail. So that pissed people off. The sentence, the guy was, just to be clear, the sentence was, he didn't serve any time in prison. In the UK, a suspended sentence means you do not go to prison. It means you serve your time out in your everyday life, as long as you, and if you don't, you can't commit any crime within that, whatever the period is. So his was 6 months. But that's not a fucking punishment, is it? I believe actions have consequences, and regardless of race, I wasn't given justice. And that's what I've been struggling with. It's took me 4 years to even talk about this. So for people just to come out and say it's race, you're the problem. You are. I'm not making it about race, but how could I not think that this had an impact from the leaders of the country, who were just scared to hold someone accountable for their actions in case something happened like that. That's what I believe happened. I really do. I'm not blaming anybody, any of the protests or anything. I'm just saying what I believe the fucking system did. There's some wild comments in that other video. So, yeah, and I appreciate all the support, and I appreciate all the comments, because I'm just looking for a way of putting this to bed in my head, okay? I am, and I'm not comparing it. There's people talking about, you know, the history of black people and stuff, and look, it's nothing to do with that. It isn't. He can't not be punished because of the history of black people. That can't be the rule of thumb. He should have been held accountable. That's it. But that was just a bit of a, I hope I've covered, because I think I've come across, well, I don't care how I've come across, I'm just saying it as it is for me. But yeah, I'd look up the dates and stuff, because it was how it was here, and it was a lot different from the American protests. You guys have different rules there. You guys can scream in the police's face, tell them to fuck off and all this. You do that in the UK, you're not going home. You know, they could stop and search anybody without any suspicion or without any probable cause. And then at the time, the protests were calling for that to reform, but the government, Boris Johnson, fucking doubled down on it, and he said he expanded the rules that the police had, the power the police had. This man didn't leave his house that day for this to happen. I know he didn't, and I'm not saying he needed to be locked up forever, but he needed to be held accountable. Okay, and unless you've been a victim of something horrific, losing a child or something along those lines, you can't appreciate what justice can do, or when you haven't received it. It eats away at you. So, yeah, that's it. Any more questions? Contact my lawyer. All right. Listen, I hope I've cleared a few things up. I probably haven't. And to the geezer that was hit when he was younger, 6 years old, you made a duet thing about it. Listen, it wasn't about race. And I know you said you never blamed the driver that hit you about the race. You never said that. Nor have I. But with all due respect, you're alive. I'm sure at the time your parents were fucking grateful that you didn't lose your life. She lost her life. And I'm not saying that's an excuse to bring race into it, but I can't ignore the whole fucking thing that was going on. You can't tell me to ignore that. You can't. It is what it is. And if I'm supposed to just ignore that and not think of his race, that's just stupid. It is. But I'm not out there going, black people need to be this. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying as it fucking was, and I'm looking for people's feedback on it. Should I be thinking like this? Have I lost the fucking plot? But anyway, be nice, people.